People usually either love or hate cilantro. I happen to love it, but I don't know if it actually loves me back. I've had trouble growing these because they tend to bolt too quickly, I think because of summer heat, and I don't even get to harvest. I'll try again, but this time I'm using a slow bolt variety. At least it says that here. Hopefully, I'll be successful. All my previous attempts at growing cilantro had been lackluster. They had erratic and slow germination. Last year, I learned of a trick to supposedly get more even and quicker germination. It involves a stone and a bit of a drastic but gentle move. So I decided to try it. All I had to do was to gently crush the cilantro seed pods to separate the halves that happen to be distinct seeds. Even though each round pod looks like one seed, it is in fact a composite, much like the seed of beets or Swiss chard. Otherwise, you risk actually crushing the single seeds, effectively killing them. By separating the pods, you not only get a more even distribution of seedlings in a particular area, they happen to germinate faster with less crowding. That is because when you separate the seeds from each other, you allow water to access the softer inner shell that divide them, allowing them to swell and sprout sooner. Another thing you can do to aid in germination is to soak the seeds in a cup of water overnight. Since we were having a rather wet spring, I didn't think it was necessary. I cleared a spot in the garden from the usual weeds that blanket my soil every winter. I was hoping they would not recolonize the space before the cilantro could grow up and establish itself, hopefully shading out the competition. It was a bit of wishful thinking because, for whatever reason, I had previously had trouble getting cilantro to grow fast enough to establish itself. It would usually stay stunted for a while and then zoom up as the weather warmed with approaching summer, quickly bolting before producing any substantial amount of leaves to warrant harvesting. After sowing, I gave the bed a light cover of mulch and hoped for the best. With the abundant rains, the weeds quickly regained their stranglehold over the garden, since weeding and mulching come to a halt when rain falls almost every day. At least the cilantro had sprouted more reliably this time. However, I could already hear the echoes of past failures reverberating. The cilantro is not looking its best. It seems to not be growing as fast as it should, and it's already very warm and humid. It seems like summer just came right after winter. So I don't know how well it's gonna grow, if it's gonna bolt soon. It's supposed to be a slow bolting variety, but you never know. I think I need to clean up some of the weeds that have grown around it to give it a little bit of a boost. Cilantro needs plenty of sun to grow well-developed leaves worth harvesting. Therefore, weeds can quickly stunt its growth. Having it growing weed-free is essential. I happen to love the taste of cilantro, but it really cannot compare with parsley when it comes to ease of cultivation. Growing parsley is so much easier. They are more reliable and resilient plants, and that means a lot to me. I think it's been a bit of a challenge to keep up with mulching in order to suppress the weeds, especially because it has been raining for almost 2 weeks and the grass has grown, but I have not been able to cut it. Also, grass, usually fresh grass, has a tendency to mat up, so I can't put too much of it. If I had really dry straw, it would be perfect. Anything that you have that's drier to mulch, I think works best. That's why wood chips work really well. But I'll use what I have, and hopefully I can give them a little bit of a boost in nitrogen by adding fresh grass clippings later on when the lawn actually dries up and I'm able to cut it. Frankly, my cilantro seeds looked wimpy at this point. I was starting to lose hope they would be able to produce anything substantial. In any case, I went about carefully weeding around the fragile seedlings, being careful not to yank them out in the process. Meanwhile, as I waited for them to respond, I decided to grow another plant I had been meaning to try for a while, purslane. This is the first time I'm actually intentionally planting purslane. I bought some seed and I'm gonna be trying to find a place where it's very similar to its natural habitat, which is disturbed ground that's very sunny and hot. And the only place I have that's kind of like that is around the brick path. So I'm gonna be planting it in between the plants and the path. That way I'm saving space also. Hopefully the groundhog won't find it, but it seems to be one of its favorite foods. It probably knows how nutritious it is, and that's why it eats it all. I've had it growing as a weed before, and the groundhog ate everything, so we'll see. It is essentially a weed that grows in disturbed sunny soil. Hopefully it would do well and grow where I wanted it to. The few times I had spotted it in my garden, it was quickly devoured by the groundhog. It is said to be packed with minerals, although because it is also high in calcium oxalates, it is better to cook it and eat it in moderation. It can be toxic to certain animals like dogs and cats. It is commonly enjoyed by foragers, and because it has a pleasant taste, it has become a bit of a gourmet weed. I usually see it growing in very poor soil, so maybe my rich garden soil was not really appropriate for it. Coming up in the next block, would I still be able to get a harvest out of my underdog cilantro, or would it prove to be a complete failure? You will find out right after this commercial. If you enjoyed the videos and would like to support the channel, you can purchase an original painting or drawing in my Etsy shop, or become a patron in my Patreon. About a month later, I went to check how my cilantro was developing, and while they were not the picture of abundance, they were faring a bit better than I had expected. Frankly, I had not planted many seeds, and several of the ones that had sprouted had not grown to full maturity, succumbing to the competition. A few plants showed better growth, even as some started to show signs of bolting. Perhaps timing had been my main problem. Cilantro happens to like cool weather. When soil temperatures rise above 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it is bound to bolt. For that reason, it doesn't do well during late spring and summer here. It also paradoxically needs plenty of sunshine, so growing them in fall and early winter can be challenging in my property due to lack of light. They tolerate light frosts, but ultimately die after repeated hard frosts. For that reason, I suppose they do better growing in a sheltered greenhouse during the colder months. I don't think I could be successful growing it in my relatively warm and partially shaded microclimate. Maybe in the future I could find workarounds to growing them successfully, but for now I harvested the bit that I could and decided to enjoy what I had. I think they may grow wonderfully well in places like Florida during the winter time, with plenty of sun but cooler, frost-free temperatures. I harvested a few sprigs and went into the kitchen to prepare a chilled salad to enjoy as a refreshing side in a meal. I had harvested some fresh and tender sugar snap peas, so my plan was to do a very simple, quick pickle of sorts using the peas. I cut each pod into smaller pieces and dropped them into a glass container to be refrigerated. I then finely chopped my cilantro sprigs and added them to the container. When will we share the fruit of the land? Humble hearts, caring hands, willing to come together, not as foes, but friends. How can we learn to love one another? How can we serve as roots to feed each other? I cut a lime and squeezed its juice together with everything else. I then finally added salt to taste and mixed everything together. I then put the container in the fridge to allow the ingredients to marinate for a few hours before enjoying them as a side relish. While my cilantro harvest had been modest, I learned a bit more and got encouraged to keep trying to grow the plants I find challenging.